Hi, I'm Rachel from Sweetthorn. Welcome to my latest embroidery update. At the moment I'm playing around with the idea of China embroidery. This project was inspired by broken fragments of pottery. So far I've just been experimenting with stitch types and thread colours. I'm using blue threads on white fabrics and I've been working out my favourite shades. I've also started experimenting with gold thread to mimic Kintsugi, which is a Japanese technique for ceramic repairs. At the end of my last video, I'd chosen some blue shades and started working on some china fragments. At this point I'm still working out which stitches create the best effects and work well with the gold thread. I've used satin stitch for the blue edging on the small fragments. I like the lines increasing in thickness on this design. I'm using stem stitch for the lighter lines, increasing the number of threads for each line, and I'll be moving to chain stitch for the thickest lines, using 4 strands and then 6. Chain stitch gives better coverage than stem stitch, but it adds more texture as well. Stem and satin stitch are more subtle, so I'll bear that in mind for the next design. As always, I start with a plan and it shifts as I work. I made a test for one thick Kintsugi repair and assumed I was going to lay the stitch vertically so that it was in line with the satin stitch. I realised I also wanted to see how the thread looked stitched horizontally, so I created another fragment for comparison. I have to say, I'm undecided about the results. The horizontal stitching was easier to stitch neatly. I can't decide if it matters that it runs in a different direction to the blue thread. The vertical stitching looks more logical, but it was a lot harder to keep the section neat. I think that means the decision falls in the favour of horizontal stitching for now. Having said all that, my favourite way to use the gold is actually with stem stitch anyway, creating a delicate hairline sort of repair rather than a chunky one. I used stem stitch again for this design, and it works really well. I had to think about whether to try out gold chain stitch as well, but I decided it would look too open for Kintsugi, and that it might be more tricky to stitch with metallic thread. But I do have some indigo fabric, so I might have to try it out anyway just to enjoy the colour contrast. So here's my finished study. I've roughly stitched the edges with an ecru thread to finish them off. Instead of stitching fragments, my next design is more like a broken china tile. I'm going to try a scrolling blue design broken up by a gold stem stitch. So I'll be back next month to show you how that went. If you haven't seen the first video in this series, take a look here. Otherwise, please like and subscribe, and I'll be back with a stitch tutorial next week. Bye for now.